So it was
interesting. Well, I mean, before it used to be the Minister of Information and Communications Infrastructure. I mean, 2 years ago, it was decoupled. We only have now the Minister of Information, and on the other hand, you have the Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy. But as a Minister of Information, take us through the area of responsibilities as a standalone ministry.
Well, we are custodians of the information value chain. We are the ministry responsible for making sure that the framework, the legal frameworks and the policy frameworks are right for broadcasting and media to operate in this country, but also for the freedom of information in this country. So basically, that is our role as a ministry. We deal with policy, we make sure that the policy frameworks are right, we ensure that the media operates freely in this country, we ensure media personnel also operate freely in this country. That is why we have different operational agencies within the ministry, which help us with the operational aspect of it. But as a ministry, we focus more on policy and ensuring that the policies are right, ensure that there's freedom of information in this country, and that the media and broadcasting operates freely in this country.
And talking about, I mean, what you do, I mean, how will you describe the current state of the ministry, administratively?
Well, it's good. I must thank the predecessor and all those who have been working in the ministry. Remember, it's kind of it's not a new ministry, but since decoupling, obviously, roles have to be defined, mandates have to be redefined. And therefore, those who've been working there from the PS down to DPS and all the admin staff, they did a fantastic job, including the previous minister. It's not a very big ministry, though. I think it's the smallest ministry in government. And the mandate also focuses only on information as opposed to other ministries.
And has a very important mandate.
In fact, it's the nerve center of government. It has a critical role to play. I think we'll delve into that as we go on. So it's not a very big ministry, easy to manage, and I think the ministry has been well managed and well governed. So that made my job easy.
And talking about the policies, I mean, what policies are in place at the moment? I mean, you're talking about, I mean, working with the media, and since your appointment, what have you done so far?
Now, currently, what I'm trying to do is to understand the sector,
okay.
And I'm using a multi approaches to understand the sector. One is engagement. I'm trying to interact with different stakeholders. Recently, I've had meetings with GPU, okay. the Media Council, Tango, the CSO Coalition for Freedom of Information. I've also met the commissioners for the implementation of the Access to Information Act, the ATI. Okay. This week I'm meeting the proprietors of TV service providers, amongst which is QTV. And I'm glad that when you mentioned the first privately run TV in the Gambia. Then I'll be meeting those who run the newspapers as well, and then the radio stations, the community radio stations, and the commercial radio stations. Then I'll also be today I had a meeting with our information officers okay. deployed at the different ministries. So I'm trying to meet the different stakeholders to have an understanding of what's happening in the sector. I visited the agencies under the ministry's purview, which is the Gambia Printing and Publication and Publishing Corporation, the GRTS, but also the Department of Information Services. Okay. So what I'm trying to do is to understand the sector. Also, I'm reviewing the legal frameworks as well, because these things are very important. Some of the legal frameworks might be outdated and not fit for purpose. Okay. So that's what I'm doing now, trying to understand the sector, talking to people, so that we can design a way forward for the sector.
And you talk about, I mean, visiting some of the agencies under your ministry, of course, GRTS, I mean, Department of Information Service and GPPC. Take us through, what did you find out in this?
Well, they are doing a fantastic job. I know GPPC is doing a very good job. They are doing large-scale printing. They have huge capacity to print even, I mean, anything. So they're doing a fantastic job. I was very pleased when I was there. GRTS is doing a good job. They are on what they call a modernization project to modernize GRTS. And I think here the ministry comes in to support and augment currently what they are doing to modernize GRTS to make sure it is fit for purpose. We want to transform it into one of the best in the sub-region in terms of media and broadcasting as well. That both
how will you do that?
Well, currently I'm trying to do, because I'm trying to do what I call a diagnostic review okay. of this sector. This includes different agencies as well. And this diagnostic review will help me better understand the gaps, the weaknesses, the potentials of the different agencies within the sector. And based on the outcome of this diagnostic review and the recommendations therein, we'll be able to now do our transformation. GRTS has to serve the public. GRTS, you remember during Jammeh's era, GRTS was a monopoly. It was the only TV station allowed to operate in this country. With His Excellency President Barrow coming into power, he opened the media landscape, and now we have 5 TV stations, over 45 radio stations, which is unprecedented. We have almost 5 newspapers that are operating in the country. So the media landscape has been opened under the leadership of His Excellency the President. So now GRTS has to compete with other private TV stations, but not only that, has to compete with online media. And online media is not that much regulated. Now they all serve the same public by providing information to the public, but those who are doing online are not regulated, and they are competing with QTV, GRTS. So what do we need to do to ensure that we close those gaps that are there? We make sure that the staff are competent, we build the infrastructure for GRTS, we bring in relevant programs as well, as much as possible. Have multi-channels, for example, GRTS 1, GRTS 2, GRTS 3 with different focuses. Make sure we equip it with all the kind of equipment it needs. So we are looking at that. But what I need to do now is to do a diagnostic review of the sector, a surgical one, to help me understand the sector, the gaps, the weaknesses, the strengths, what we need to do to redefine this sector for the 21st century. Remember, information is dynamic, and it's very crucial for us to get it right. And currently, based on my first analysis of the situation, there is a disconnect between what the government is doing and what the population thinks the government is doing. Now, this disconnect is causing a perception among the population think the government is not doing anything, but which is false. The government is doing fantastic work.
Whose responsibility is it?
The Ministry of Information has a role to play there. That is for Ministry of Information. And we are working, currently I'm working on designing and developing a strategic or effective communication strategy, which now we'll use to make sure that we now have an effective communication channel between the government and the people, which is not one way. That is, we take information from government, trying to make sure that the public is aware of government programs, government activities, government policies to the public, but also take from the public and bring to government. That is why we're also doing outreach programs, going to different parts of the country, in different talking to people. What are your concerns? What do you want to tell government? Do you have anything for government? So if government knows, we call that the input from the public. Now they can also be able to design their policies based on inputs from the public, and they give output back to the. So
that's going to guide the government when it comes to
exactly. So because government has to be responsive to the people, and the minister has a role to play to ensure that responsiveness occurs. That is, we don't only take information from government and take it to the people. We'll also do outreach programs, talking to the people. We bring information, say, hey, this is what the people of Jara are saying. This is what the farmers in Kiang are saying. This is what the people of West Coast are saying. Now, you can't solve all these problems as a government. There are huge resource challenges. But listening to people and trying to find a way to solve their problems that will ease their fears and feels that they're also part of it. They take ownership, and it creates what they call inclusivity in governance. So obviously, we'll be doing a lot of those things. We'll be engaging more with the media. We'll be using new technologies to engage with the public. We'll also be having frequent press conferences, engaging with the media. Our role is to ensure that we create a new information architecture in this country, where government is the first stop when it comes to information, to the Ministry of Information. Because if we don't do that, we leave a gap in the information landscape. And if there is a gap, people with a different agenda fill those gaps with misinformation and disinformation, which does harm to national security, but it also does harm to the welfare and well-being of the Gambian citizens. So we are going to ensure that there's an information overflow, that everything that the population needs to know. And let me tell you something, and we need to commend the President, Adama Barrow, for this, and his government. For the first time in the history of the Gambia, since independence, the right to information is a human right, truly what they call the ATI, the Access to Information Law. I think every Gambian should read that act. It's one of the most important piece of legislation this country has produced, and I thank the government for that. That is why they've made our work easy. There is not anybody can approach any government agency to demand information which is in the public's interest and which should be in the public domain. That is unprecedented. In for many countries don't even have it. In Liberia they've had it, but they're not even using it. I think if you look at the request from the public, it's minuscule. But we are trying to make sure that we sensitize the population. This act is here for access to information. Now you look at the media landscape, it's been opened. Like I said, there was a monopoly from GRTS. Now we have 5 TVs and counting. Within the next decade, we'll have 10 TV stations operating in this country. The media has become freer in the history of this country. The media personnel are not harassed. People speak freely their mind. Just do a survey of all the radio programs in the country. People speak their mind, uninterrupted by the government. This is
one will say we have seen instances where media houses journalists were being attacked, and in some cases, some media houses are in fact temporarily closed.
But these are isolated incidences, and sometimes it's difficult for government to find a balance between national security and freedom of speech. And sometimes government has to do certain things, but these are isolated incidences. I mean, and if you look at the Freedom of Information Index, we have significant progress from 50 in 2002 to 46 in 2022 to 46 2023. It means that in Africa, we are number 5 in Africa out of 50-something countries. In the world, we are 46 out of 180 countries. This is significant progress in terms of press freedom. Yes, you can talk about those isolated incidences, but nobody gets it perfect. And sometimes government has a responsibility to protect security, to protect lives and welfare of government. So sometimes they have to do what they have to do. Even in other countries that are called democratic, these things happen there. But nonetheless, look at the bigger picture. I think the government has done significant progress insofar as press freedom and media freedom is concerned.
I will stick to the access to information law because you touch on it. I will have brought it later, but let's just exhaust this and access to information law. I mean, under the law, I mean, there should be a commission, which is still pending. How far have you gone?
It's not pending. In fact, I have had last week, one of the meetings I've had is about the commission. Okay. The commissioners has been confirmed. What we are waiting for now, because based on the act, the National Assembly has to confirm the appointment. They've already been appointed. Okay. National Assembly now has to do the confirmation. Perhaps during next sitting of National Assembly in June, they'll confirm the commissioners and they'll get to work. Currently, we are working on their logistics in terms of their offices, their secretariat. These things are being worked out, the logistics. I think before the end of this year, they'll be in operation as well.
Who is going to fund it? How independent will the commission be? Who's going to fund it?
Well, they'll be very independent. I mean, the government has to fund it, but they'll be the judiciary is funded by government, but they're independent. So it doesn't mean that when government funds it, it's not independent. They'll be very independent. And in the caliber of people who are in that commission, believe me, they'll be very independent and they'll make sure they execute their duties to the best of their abilities.
According to the law, I mean, all government ministries and agencies should have qualified information officers to provide information at any given time. But this is not to say every information that is requested must be provided. How far have you gone in ensuring that all these government agencies, hire and employ qualified information officers to handle this information?
Well, not necessarily hire new information officers, but use existing staff and train them to become information officers.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think government will do that. Those things are ongoing. And like I said, these information officers will be the focal persons insofar as the request for information is concerned. Everything goes through them and everything goes from them as well. They have their principals, the people we call the information holders as well. So if you want information about a particular transaction or a particular case, you write to the Ministry of Justice, for example, you write to the information officer, who in turn will have to respond to your request within 48 hours, I think, to say that I've received your information, we are working on it, your request, and make sure everything is in the act, everything, the timelines in the act, the roles and responsibilities of the information holders in the act, the roles and of the information officer in the act, the roles and responsibilities of those who are requesting is in the act, even where information which is not supposed to be out, for example, classified information, I mean, anywhere in the world, there are like defense, security information, some trade information. These are classified, and these are classified by law. That is why if you go to other countries, classified, they have what they call secret, top secret. Sometimes confidential. Sometimes they have a lifespan to say, well, this info will be top secret for 10 years. Then it's downgraded to secret. Then it becomes public information, because Gambia is a sovereign country, and therefore Gambia is also an international actor in the international scene. And there's some information should be confidential and not for the public domain, not for public consumption. But anything that is not within the ambit of those classified information, I think every citizen of this country has a right. Now it's a human right for the request for information by following the due process. And I think the government also has a responsibility based on the act to provide that information without prejudice.
Let's now, I mean, we know there's the Minister of Information, but equally there's a government spokesperson. Where do you draw the line?
Well, these roles are clearly defined.
Okay.
The Minister of Information mostly...
I know some people might be confused. Oh, no, Minister of Information...
The spokesperson is a spokesperson for the presidency.
Okay. And the government, because it's a government
but mostly for the presidency.
Okay.
The Minister of Information is the policy head when it comes to the information value chain,
okay,
as we are the ones who control it. And remember, we're not only here for just to give information, we also, the sector must be managed and regulated by us. The legal frameworks, we are the custodians of it. We are making sure that the sector performs properly by coming up with the policies and creating the policy framework. So I think the roles have been clearly defined, and this is not unprecedented. You go to other countries, they have it there. You have the Minister of Information, you have a spokesperson for the press or the government spokesperson. So I think since I assumed office, I've been working very closely with the current spokesperson, and we are making a very good team together with the Director of Press at the Office of the President. So it's a team, and we've been able to synergize and synchronize our different roles in a manner where we serve the Gambian public.
And there won't be any conflicting information to the public?
No. We are trying to work hard. We are trying to make sure that we synchronize our activities. We work together, not only with them, but also different ministries. Because remember, most of the information is with the ministries, because they're the ones who implement some of the government projects and activities and programs. And that is why we have information officers deployed to each ministry to be able to be the focal person to give us that information. And they've been very, very cooperating, I can tell you, the different, my colleagues in cabinet, in terms of getting information and sending it out there. Because we know, like I said, we want to curb this disconnect which exists between what the public think the government is doing and what the government is doing. We want to make sure the perception changes, so the people really know that the government is doing a fantastic job, which indeed they are doing.
But I mean, most of these ministries, Doctor, I mean, you go to their website, in fact, somebody is dysfunctional. There are websites, you don't find anything there. You don't have Twitter handle in this age and time. I mean, all these ministries...
No, we are working on that. We are working on that. Currently, as we speak, the Ministry of Digital
Economy
and is working on building all government websites. So very soon you'll be seeing government websites up and running. And like I said, new public sector in the 21st century obviously cannot go without technology and you know what they call digitization. So we are working on that. Very soon all ministries will have a full functioning website, and we are going to train our in that. In fact, today I had a meeting with all our information officers that are deployed at various ministries to work with them, to give them the right training, to make sure that the ministries also, because when we are designing this effective communication strategy for government, this will include also bringing along all different ministries, and we align communication in a manner in which we all speak with the same voice and make sure that information is relevant, is timely, but also it is worthwhile for the Gambian people.
I'm talking about information. What kind of information does the ministry handle?
Well, mostly is about government projects, government activities, policies, decisions, for example, cabinet decisions, any information which we think the public should know. It sometimes comes through us. But also, like I said, it's a two-way traffic. We are going to be more innovative and more proactive, not only feeding the public with information, but also bringing information from the public and giving it to government through our outreach and what we are going to the consultative dialogue. We'll be going around the regions and talking to people to know what are their fears, what are their concerns, what are their priorities, and we bring this to government because it will help government to also shape policy based on what the people want. Like I said, government has to be responsive to the people's needs. If there's a disconnect, if government and the people don't speak and there's a disconnect, government will not know what they don't know what the people want. who are you making the policies for then? What programs are you going to bring for? You need to know what the people want, and then we are going to make the two-way traffic, making sure that information now becomes a two-way traffic. But mostly, sometimes, and now in the ministry, we are trying to be more proactive. We don't want to wait until, we don't want to be in firefighting mode, where we wait until information is out and we scramble
to react.
No, we don't. That's why we are being very proactive, making. I mean, listen, every government is facing challenges in this world, from Japan to Spain, from UK to South Africa. Now, where it is negative information, we'll still tell the public. The most important thing is whether we have a solution for it. And I think the government always has solutions for some of these things. So when there are challenges, we'll tell the public, hey, this is what's happening, but this is how we are going to handle it. What we don't want to do is to leave a gap where people will start to speculate and leading to rumor mongering, and people thinking that the government doesn't care about them because government doesn't communicate. And people want communication. They want to see their government communicating, interacting with them. They want to have a situation where they can go to government and say, hey, this is what I want, these are my priorities. And we are going to create that environment to ensure that every citizen, you see yourself in government, you know what the government is doing, you know what programs are available, you know what services are available, and our ministry is going to make sure that we create the right legal frameworks, but also the strategies to ensure this happens.
Earlier on, you said, I mean, you also plan to meet with the proprietors of the TV stations, of course, radio stations and online as well. I mean, what are your plans for the media houses?
Well, to understand first I want to understand their challenges. See, before you have a plan, you need to understand what the challenges. I know it's been a very difficult period for proprietors of media houses. It's been COVID-19, printing costs have increased, operational costs have increased, income has decreased. So we need to talk. I want to talk to all the media to understand what their challenges. Because we have to support them. They are in business. They are media entrepreneurs. They have to make profit. So how do we help them to make profit? How do we help media practitioners, the journalists, to get the competence they need? Because for me, the journalists in this country are as important as the nurses and the doctors and any other professionals in this country. Now, if you have if you don't have competent doctors and nurses, the health sector collapses. That is why today the Ministry of Health, one of the good things they are doing is that training personnel. They are training specialists in different fields. They are training consultants in different fields. In fact, very soon, you'll see the Ministry of Health will start to deploy consultants and specialists in all the major referral hospitals. That is what they are doing. Now, you go to the teaching field. If you have bad teachers who are not competent, the whole sector collapses. The same thing with the media landscape. If you have journalists who are not competent and who don't know how to report, then it's bad. Therefore, we need to understand what are their training needs. That is why I'm talking about the surgical diagnostic. To understand what are the training needs of media personnel, what are the challenges that the media proprietors are facing to help them their business become more viable and buoyant. How do we train the media personnel? What do we do to ensure that Gambia has a competent media workforce, journalists who can deliver, who can communicate, who don't just I mean the most important thing is to ensure that we have a good crop, a reservoir of good journalists through training. So I'm trying to understand this sector and the needs of this sector. It's going to take some time for me to understand that, because it's not it's a very critical sector, very sensitive sector. You don't have to rush it. You need to understand exactly what is happening, what are the challenges, what are the gaps, what are the weaknesses. Then now you can design the right policies and the right strategies to ensure that we transform the information architecture in this country and make it on the best in the sub-region.
I mean, you talk to most of media house owners. I mean, they will tell you the issue of, like you said, high cost of production materials. I mean, in other countries, for example, in Senegal, I mean, you have the government, giving subvention to media houses. I mean, just recently, the outgoing president, Macky Sall, waived all the areas of media houses. Is this something that you are also considering?
But last year, you got subventions,
$270,000
euros. You got subvention. For the first time in history of the Gambia, media houses in this country received subvention from government.
That was the
$270,000, but still it was subvention. Whereas COVID or not. At least government realized that COVID was challenging. They gave you subvention.
Well,
so I think you should say thank you to government
yes,
for that.
Yes, but here
exactly.
QTV,
so obviously, if I meet the media practitioners, I'll listen to them. to better understand their challenges and how we can work together as a team to solve some of those challenges. Now we are as a team, we are a family now. The Ministry, Department of Information Services, the media practitioners, the journalists, every stakeholder in the sector now. We need to work together now as a team. We all have a common interest to make sure that the government people have access to relevant, timely, authentic information. And also to ensure that the media entrepreneurs, they have a buoyant and a viable and a sustainable business where they make profit, at least so that they can grow. We also ensure that media practitioners, our journalists, are competent enough and they are well paid and they operate in a free environment. This is very important. So that is why I'm trying to meet all of them, to listen to them, listen to their concerns. Then from there, now I know exactly who is who, what is happening, how do we go about it. Then we can come up with the right strategies and the right policies to ensure that, my aim is to ensure that the information sector becomes the envy of the sub-region, and then we'll create a model where other countries will come to the government to come and understudy our information sector so they can apply it in their different countries, respective countries.
Earlier on, you talk about the agencies under the ministry. We only dealt with GRTS, I mean, information services. I mean, what service do they offer?
Well, they're supposed to be the operational arm of the ministry, like information services. Okay. They provide information as a service. Minister of Health provides health as a service. Minister of Education, education as a service. It's every ministry. So information itself is a public good. It is important. It is critical, especially in this day and age. That is why we call this age the information age, because everything hinges on information. Everything hinges on information. Information saves lives. What to eat, what not to eat, when to grow your crops, when to harvest. All this is information. Therefore, now everything is on, and people are on their mobile phones. You look, before you go out, you look at how is the temperature outside. So everything is information, and it's key. Information is critical, and it's not only that; it is dynamic, because it changes very quickly. Therefore, like within 1 hour, there can be thousands of tons of information. How do you now filter all this information, and which is relevant, which is not relevant? So therefore, Department of Information Services is the operational arm of the ministry. They run the Gambia Daily. In fact, we are trying to also revamp the Gambia Daily.
That will have been my
follow-up question. We are going to revamp the Gambia Daily because it comes out now once a month. We are trying to find ways to make sure it comes out 6 days a week. That is part of our medium to long-term plan. 6 days a week. There's no newspaper that comes out on Saturdays in this country. But that should not happen. Other countries,
you have government newspapers.
No, but other countries, even newspapers come like twice a day. You have the morning standard, evening standard. So why should we have a country where only 5 days a week? What about Saturday, Sunday? People need to read news. And if news comes out on Saturday, it's not reported until Monday, it becomes stale news. So therefore, we are trying to revamp it, make sure that now we come out, we produce 6 days a week as well. But we are still looking into those things. These things are part of our medium to long-term plan. That is the modernization of the Gambia Daily, the modernization of GRTS, how we are also going to ensure that we equip the GPPC with cutting-edge technology. This new technology, if I've been to visit them, some of the machines I've seen should be in the museum where people can now go and see. They've been there since independence, since in the 70s. But these things take time. We are trying to find ways to find support to make sure that they also have cutting-edge technology, new machines to enhance their work. GRTS to modernize it, to make it one of the best TV and radio stations in the sub-region. Department of Information Service also to make sure that we give them the competent personnel they need, the right policies they need to make sure that what they do is to provide service information to the people so they can do their job properly.
Interesting. I mean, like you said, I mean, GRTS is very important. I mean, over the years, I mean, many will complain, particularly the opposition, that, it was more of, it only serves the state. But under you and, of course, under President Barrow, we have seen improvement as far as GRTS is concerned. So what will you do to ensure that GRTS serves the state and not just the sitting president?
No, but everybody knows that under President Adama Barrow's government, GRTS is serving the public. Even the opposition have been given space in GRTS. You look at the last elections, coverage was equal among all the political parties. And still, GRTS doors are open to all political parties. So for me, that is not even an issue people are complaining about. GRTS has never been so fair to the Gambian people as it is now under the leadership of His Excellency the President. So I think we should thank the President for that, for creating that environment where now media houses are free, where journalists operate freely without interference, where there are no threats to media operators in this country, and where now we are seeing GRTS, the state broadcaster, opening their doors and giving airtime to each and every citizen of this country without discrimination based on gender, region, political affiliation, or any other social characteristic.
So in the short term, what's your priorities?
The short term now is to understand the sector, engage stakeholders in the sector, understand the sector better, and then do a diagnostic review of the sector, design our communications strategy in government community, how to communicate effectively with the population. These are the short-term strategies to understand. Then after that, we now come understand how the sector is, what are the issues, what are the gaps. Then we can now kind of design the right policies, but also the legal frameworks, we need to review them. Some of them are outdated. The legal frameworks are the engine of any sector. Some of these legal frameworks have been there since the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, but times have changed. So when you create legal frameworks, you don't create it to cater for today's needs, but also you look at trends as they emerge, and then you create legal framework that can serve their purpose even in 25 years' time. So you don't have to create always new legal frameworks. Some of these legal frameworks were created for a different epoch, for a different society, for different needs. Now times have changed. We need to now, I also have to review all these legal frameworks like the broadcasting, the newspaper acts, lots of them. I have them on my table, so I'm trying to understand the code of conduct for community radios. Some of those codes of conduct also we need to review them. Are they still fit for purpose? What has changed? But also try to understand how we can really deal with the online media. It's a challenge. They are competing with the conventional media. They also have the same public, but they are not regulated. You are regulated. It means that there's some restraint in what you can do, what you cannot do. So it creates issues of competition, unfair competition among the conventional media and the online media. How do we now navigate our way through it? How do we find a balance in a manner in which we don't suppress information, but also anybody who serves the public by giving information is regulated in a manner in which they play according to the rules of the game, and that is regulation. How we are going to do that? We are going to looking at all those things. That is why I'm going to talk to even online media. I'm going to invite them at some point, talk to them, newspapers. I want to talk to everyone in this sector, visit some of the key installations as well. It's a short-term plan, the Aboko Art Station. I'll go up to Basse to visit the Radio Gambia there. I'll visit all our critical infrastructure because, like I said, the infrastructure, broadcasting is a critical infrastructure, which should be secured and which I need to understand as well. What are the gaps in this infrastructure? How old are they? Do we need new infrastructure? Because like the world is moving. So I'm trying to understand this sector in terms of the human resource capacity, in terms of the physical infrastructure, in terms of the legal frameworks, in terms of institutions, in terms of the structures, having an understanding of it. Then now we can chart a clear way forward whereby now we have a holistic approach in ensuring that we reform, and that word is key, we reform the information sector. It needs reform because some of these laws are old. We need to reform it. By reforming the information sector, the incidental benefit will be reforming DOIS to make sure it is fit for purpose, it is competent, it has competent personnel, it serves the right public right, equipping and supporting GPPC, making sure that now they are also well equipped and they serve their purpose and they are also their full capacity. GRTS as well, we modernize it to make it a state broadcaster worthy of its name. It should not play second fiddle to QTV anymore. It should take the lead. And the others will follow.
Thank you so much. Well, QTV, we're here. I mean, the leading private TV station, and then we are doing what we are supposed to do as a TV station towards the development of the country. I mean, so thank you so much, Dr. Ismaila Ceesay, the Minister of Information. It was good to have you on the program, and I think this is your first interview since your appointment.
It is indeed. Apart from this morning, I had one
I am honored to have you on the program.
The first TV interview.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ismaila Ceesay. It was good to have you on the program, and we hope to have you in our subsequent editions to discuss more about what your ministry does. Well, viewers, with that, we bring an end to this week's edition of your State of Affairs program. I was your host, Aliu Ceesay. Do join us next week. Until then, bye-bye from me and the entire production team. Good night.